Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the DS Show. I'm joined by a very special guest today. He not only is a dear friend, but also now a business partner with DSI. He's our head of Anaplan for biotech. Please welcome Mr. Karim Lameer to the show. Nice to have you on, Karim.
Thanks, Danish.
So, as always, we like to start with introducing our guests and letting them share a little bit about their background. So, Karim, would you be willing to share a little bit about your background? You can start maybe like pre-Anaplan, like what was your, education and your career background pre-Anaplan?
Sure. Yeah. So, hello, everyone. I'm Karim Lameer and currently working with Daanish actually at DSI, where we're building capability within Anaplan, where we're focusing specifically on biotech. And a little bit about my history. I started basically. I'm finance qualified, so I'm a qualified accountant, and I've always had sort of financial data, those sort of roles. Made quite a career on being really good at Excel, actually, and that was kind of the basis of a lot of the work that I've got. And while doing this, I got a role within biotech, Stellar's Pharma, and that was my first experience with Anaplan. So as soon as I kind of got exposure to Anaplan, I realized that, okay, this is actually quite a good system. And it was kind of love at first sight, but it did take me quite some time to get up to speed and get to at least to become like a reasonably good model builder. And that took me a few years to do. But what I always wanted to do was try and get to the point of how good I was in Excel into Anaplan. I don't know whether I still am at that level, but certainly I'm a lot better. And since Stellar's, I've gotten roles in biotech and managed to take whatever was built in the biotech firms and then kind of put that into my expertise. So as an Anaplan model builder, where I would think my unique selling point is that I also focus within biotech and the financial planning within the biotech industry.
Yeah, very cool. And it's been great kind of seeing you use those skill sets as we, head towards AKO. And we've got, exciting things ahead for what we're looking to do in the biotech space. But before we kind of talk about Anaplan, I actually kind of want to focus a little bit on that Excel experience you mentioned before you were with Anaplan. So can you talk a little bit about what life was like using Microsoft Excel with financial planning? How was that experience like? What kind of made it different, from Anaplan that you're using now, right? And what were some of the challenges and I guess maybe some of even the benefits, right? We may even find that there were some benefits using Excel. Like what were some of those things like when you were using Excel?
So the thing with me is like when I go into a particular application, I want to learn everything, absolutely everything about. So with Excel, there was a component of sort of Excel itself, but then also building solutions within sort of the Microsoft Office suite. So on top of Excel, I also learned VBA, which is the language that you use in order to write macros. And I became like a VBA developer. So my whole thing is I want to know it all and then use all of those skills to build the best possible solutions for everything. So with VBA was actually quite a pivotal moment because at that point I just became a developer. I could build stuff outside Excel. I was more powerful of a data analyst than just being on the Excel front end, because once you kind of know VBA, you understand programming, you understand how data structures are supposed to look like, and then also to harness the power of the analysis tools that you have within Excel itself. So I suppose you can divide my career sort of pre-Anaplan and post-Anaplan. With Excel, the advantages are that everyone has Excel, especially within finance, and also those skills get more and more valued over time when you've like built these different solutions, etc. When you can automate different systems, like you think along those lines, and you're a more powerful consultant. Like shortcomings wise, as a lot of you all might know, Excel tends to strain under pressure. So if you have workbook that is either with too much of data or is too complex, then kind of the cracks begin to show. And also I mean, not all workbooks made equal. So a lot of the time you'll inherit a workbook from someone that's been used for like years and years and years. And everyone has like put their little bits of functionality and formulas that just built it on top layer over layer of the old work done. And what happens there is like, even to make a change, you might break something or you might not understand why something was done in a particular way. So yes, there were shortcomings, and some of these shortcomings are fixed with Anaplan. So for instance, Anaplan is kind of better structured a lot of the time. You can figure out quite quickly how something was done and even maybe why it was done in a particular way, like especially if you're inheriting something from someone else. And unlike Excel, it doesn't strain under pressure that much. So you can have like vast data sets and complex calculations, which Anaplan can handle reasonably easily. Of course, you need to still make sure that it's built properly. And once you figure all of that out, you can build more compelling, more efficient solutions using Anaplan.
Yeah, that's very true. And I know a lot of our former guests have mentioned kind of similar stories with kind of how they used to be in Excel and then eventually found Anaplan. For you, what was it like if you think back to when you first got in touch with using the Anaplan platform, like which role was that in, and what was it like when you first saw Anaplan like for the very first time?
Yeah, so first time I saw it, they just got me into Estella's because of my experience and mostly around sort of the Excel skills that I had. Anaplan was more of a kind of a side system that they were implementing for a global FP&A rollout. So there was a consultancy that was handling Anaplan itself. And like my start into it, it was a bit daunting because there are a lot of concepts in Anaplan. Like the learning curve is quite steep. There are certain fundamental concepts that you would have to know that you wouldn't necessarily have guessed working in the Excel world. So things like, you can't just throw everything at a module because of sparsity and size issues. Not really an issue in Excel. And then also the hierarchies. So as everyone knows, Excel is like a two-dimensional thing, right? Columns and rows, three-dimensional if you include the tabs. But Anaplan is from its basis a hierarchically implemented system. So getting your head around that is a bit of a learning curve. And to actually think in multi-dimensions and multiple hierarchies, it's like a paradigm shift around it. So like as soon as I came into Anaplan, I didn't really know what I didn't know. I was trying to fit Anaplan into an Excel shaped box, as it were. But then, yes, it's over experience, building solutions badly, figuring out that they built them badly, and then figuring out the best way to build it. All of that took quite some time. The good thing is like it's quite accessible. Once you know of the goal of wanting to learn it, it's quite accessible in that you have the trainings and you can kind of build on top of that. But even like with the trainings, I think coming in blind from a different system, you need to kind of sit and think about certain concepts and then like internalize it before you're actually even reasonably good at building the solutions there.
Yeah, it's quite fascinating hearing people's stories when they first interact with Anaplan. And I guess my next question would be like, when was it that you felt like, okay, now I understand how Anaplan works? Like, did you have like a moment where it clicked?
Okay, that's a good question. A moment that it clicked. I mean, that's more recent than I would like to admit, to be honest. When I actually started thinking in hierarchies and sparsity and sort of building stuff the way it should be built in Anaplan rather than building it in the way it should have been in Excel. I don't know whether it was a moment or like a series of time when I actually realized, all right, this is the way you should do it. And it's a completely different way of thinking about it rather than actually building it. So yeah, and also I think in my current role at Accenture, there was a piece of work that I had to do where I had to kind of interpret an Excel model that was really complicated into Anaplan. And based on how quickly I could do it and the size of the end result and the efficiency of the end result, at that point, maybe I thought, okay, I've kind of gotten it now. But I still get surprised about certain things. Sometimes I would build a solution And then it always like bugs me for some time. And then I realized, no, this is probably not the best way to do it. It is a way, but not the best way. And then I go back and I change it. So I would say to a certain extent, but I don't know. I think maybe I don't know what I don't know. So maybe I could get a little better, but for now, I think I've figured it out.
Sure. So when you think about somebody who's starting brand new for the first time, what advice would you give to them today?
I mean, the trainings are pretty good. It's quite well thought out and everything, but the best experience is building actual solutions that you would use. So like training's good, but it's still sort of abstract, right? You have a company, you're supposed to build a solution for. You don't know about anything about the company except what is in the trainings. But if you are within a role and maybe you own a spreadsheet or you have like a process, and then you want to build something from scratch in order to facilitate that within Anaplan, I think that is the best training, because that familiarity, that need to solve an actual real world problem, that is the best sort of experience and the most, that's the best training I think you can get out of it.
Now, I kind of want to pivot a little bit because we've been talking a little bit about biotech and we talked a little bit about Excel and Anaplan, but specifically on the biotech side, what has that industry been like for you? Like what about it kind of drew you to it, and kind of what resonates about the industry with you?
So not that it drew it to me, it was just that I happened to get biotech roles when I was looking for roles, really. But I think the biotech industry as a whole would benefit quite a bit with Anaplan, because in its nature, the use case for biotech is something that Anaplan can solve, right? So if you think of a biotech company, say they're developing a drug, for instance, some of these projects could go up to 10 plus years from sort of conception to actually marketing the drug. And within that period, there's like a lot of steps that happen depending on what type of drug. There's like a lot of things that need to happen within that time. Now, you can build this in Excel, and there are some pretty good Excel models that you can get off the shelf in order to do this. But like the sheer complexity of it starts to break when you look at that in a biotech company. So you'd have like a really complex project that you have to do on Excel, but then what happens if you have like 100 of those projects, and each of those projects not the same as the other projects, and then what happens if you want to like change something sort of fundamental, like a dimension within one of that, and all of these projects are on different Excel spreadsheets, like the whole thing starts to fall apart, really. So biotech as a whole, the planning aspect at least, Anaplan can quite well manage that complexity. Of course, it is quite complex and it'll be hard to manage, but nonetheless, I feel that a platform where, multiple users updating multiple things at the same time, all of that, I think the Anaplan solution in itself, the platform in itself, would really benefit biotech.
Can you mention a little bit about what you found to be different about biotech versus some of the other industries you've worked with, and what are some things that are similar about it?
Well, I'll start maybe with the similar. So you'd have the FP&A function. The FP&A function is pretty much standard, right? They have their normal cadences, they have their sort of month-end processes, and all of that. Multiple people are involved in this process. There are time limits on when certain things can be done, etc. I mean, maybe even not specifically to biotech, but you see a lot within biotech is kind of very risk focused, right? So if you think you're building a project that's going to take maybe 10 years to pay back, there are a lot of people taking risks on this project. There's a lot of venture capital in here. There are a lot of eyes on the project, and not just the project, even the companies could be valued based on what projects they have in the pipeline, and then the discovery of something or the not discovering something can actually, like one specific thing can actually have an impact on the value of the company as a whole. And communicating this stuff, it's quite important. So the distance from the actual people on the ground to communicating this up to sort of the C-level, that needs to be as close as possible. So yeah, it's quite capital intensive. Communication is important. I mean, complexity you would get in any company in itself, unless it's quite a simple business model. But within biotech, there is quite a lot of complexity to deal with. So yeah, there are similarities, there are dissimilarities, but it just applies within the industry as a whole.
Sure. I think that's a great way to kind of recap your experience with biotech and kind of what you see as some of the challenges and kind of similarities between, biotech and some of the other industries. Now, if we focus back on your career, you've gone from Excel, we talked about pre-Anaplan, post-Anaplan. I feel like your career could be described in another way too, which is kind of your career journey up until the point where you found Anaplan, but then also you decided to go and make the leap and kind of go into your entrepreneurial side. Can you talk a little bit about what that has been like?
So I think I've always had sort of my finger on whatever's relevant, because I've been a consultant basically my entire career. So I have to know what's relevant at that particular time, because my jobs kind of depend on it. So if I've gone down different paths which haven't really worked out. So it's quite important that I'm like always seeing what's going on, what's new, what's interesting in the market, and then trying something out. If it doesn't work, try something else out, and just figuring out which way to go in order to always kind of be employable. With Anaplan, it's been pretty good. I think I came in maybe about 5 or 6 years ago. I got into Anaplan maybe 5 or 6 years ago, but then as an independent consultant, I've just been available. I've been doing this for maybe 4 years as an Anaplan consultant, and it's been a pretty good like straight line from that point onwards. From what I see, the market's growing based on like what I see on LinkedIn and people communicating with me. Also, there seems to be work available, and it's always like larger enterprise organizations, which means that the money is pretty good as well. So because of that, like because of the success within Anaplan, I want to branch out into niches within Anaplan, and biotech is one of those niches. So the whole idea, I suppose, to be successful in IT is to niche down. But then finding the right niche is always the tricky one, right? Because you could just go down a rabbit hole, spend a whole lot of time specializing in, and that has happened to me, right? It's not been by no means has it been a straight line in my career. It's always been these branches and pruning the branches and just coming back and then figuring out some weird path to wherever I am right now.
What's one thing you would say you've enjoyed the most as part of being an entrepreneur, and now that you're with DSI, like what has been some of the things that you found to be enjoyable, and maybe what's one thing that you feel you've learned along the way?
So for me, what's enjoyable is, it's always been the case that I like building solutions. I like building. I'm a builder. I'm sort of naturally a model builder. I like to build a solution. First of all, I like to conceptualize it. I like to build it and then keep on optimizing it. And that's always been the case, whether it's Excel or whether it's Anaplan. I really enjoy that side of things. With the entrepreneurial side, it gives me access to actually interesting pieces of work. It's not always been the case. Sometimes, you have to take roles when you're available, and you can't really control that. But by and large, I think for my personality, I've gotten roles that are actually quite challenging, complicated, complex, many moving parts. And for me, the best part is kind of, taking this cloud of a problem and then building a really good solution around that. And that's kind of been the most enjoyable thing. I also like getting different people's perspectives, and because I always have this thing where, I've built it, but is it actually good? And there's no way of knowing that until it's tested on the ground. And also there's no way of knowing it unless people are using it and can critique it, or speaking with people who have done it in a different way. Entrepreneur wise, I think it's a really good place to be, because you have access to all these great people, like top of their game. You can talk to them. You can talk to people with different perspectives, and that keeps you getting better and better and better. So I think being an entrepreneur is like the fastest way to get to where you want to go, because you have all of these things available to you. I wouldn't know how it would be not to, be an entrepreneur. But these are the things that I really enjoy.
Yeah, that's been one thing I feel like I've admired about you is you're always willing to, like, you're working on something, but you're never afraid to go ask somebody else for their opinion, get their feedback, test it out with them, even if they're not even related to what it is that you're doing, but you're always willing to listen and hear from anybody.
And also on top of that, Danish, I'm also willing to throw everything away and just completely change my perspective. So I like spend a whole lot of time building something, and I realize actually no, this is like a completely different paradigm on what needs to be built. Quite happy to throw that away, and I don't see that as a waste, because I wouldn't have been able to get to this other point without doing the work on this first point first.
What would you say is the one kind of biggest shift you've had from being an independent consultant to now being a full-fledged entrepreneur?
The biggest shift, yeah, by and large, the biggest shift for me is after working with DSI, it's just access to these other people that I've spoken with, right? I've spoken to like some really sharp model builders who focus on different areas of the model. I've spoken to different entrepreneurs. I've like had access to stories, even through the DSI podcast, of course, like different stories of people, like very admirable people who've build things out of just that exposure to different viewpoints, different life stories. And I feel that has really enriched me and the way I think and the way I work, etc. So I've always been quite insular in the sense, okay, I build some stuff and it works usually, but here it's like this different viewpoints. You speak to like a CFO from like a different someone who's a CFO would look at things in a different lens to what I would look at someone. A CEO would have like a different set of viewpoints, or even someone working as a project manager within a project, their priorities would be completely different. So it's kind of really expanded my viewpoint and made me think about things very differently to how I was doing it before. So I'm really happy this path has given me a lot, really.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting. And, it's something I think we both have in common is just our network. And, we genuinely just enjoy meeting people and getting to know what they do. And if there's a fit there, we're always willing to extend an offer or an arm out and see how we can collaborate on different areas, with talented people.
Exactly.
Yeah. And what would you say is, like, from a business side, like just putting on your business hat now, like what is like the biggest growth or learning that you've had just from a business standpoint?
So the thing with sort of being only a model builder is that you're building a solution, right? You see a problem and then you figure out the best way to solve that problem, sort of thing. So it's kind of in a silo or like in a vacuum to a certain extent. Yeah, the people who you're speaking with, they will want a solution and you offer them the solution, and then everything is fine. But with regards to business, and after speaking to all of these different people with these different viewpoints, you have a more holistic view, right? So you solve a problem, but then you see where that problem falls into within the larger business. So not only can you offer a solution then, but then also you can offer a more comprehensive solution. And then maybe you can see where this process fits in with the larger process, what's the upstream, what's the downstream process, and then start incorporating that into like a bigger and bigger solution in itself, a more comprehensive solution, a fuller solution. And then on top of that, you can advise people that you're working with of these different ways of doing it. Like I can explain why one course of action is better or worse than another, and these are the pros and cons, and bring that in. So like it's more speaking of that language and having a more holistic rather than just a technical view. I think I've been quite technical before, but now I'm sort of more business oriented, not just within Anaplan, but within the whole FP&A process, and then the FP&A process within the whole sort of CFO process, and then the CEO process. It's just like layers upon layers upon layers, really.
Yeah, it's certainly been a fascinating journey. I would say taking this alongside you as well, it's been quite fun. And every day is a new challenge and every day is something that we both look forward to. So kind of looking ahead now as the head of biotech, for DSI. What are you excited about? Is there anything you can share or would like to share with the audience on what's upcoming for us?
Sure. So, as the head in biotech, like this was a discussion that we had, and I think that was a role that I thought I would do best in. With like going forward, what we are thinking of. So obviously, AKO is happening, and we are going there in order to show them like what we've done so far. So what I have done is or what we have done is that we have distilled everything that I've learned so far in biotech and built that into a demo model. The demo model is up and running, and I've spoken to quite a few people in finance and taken them through the whole demo model process. It's quite exciting that they actually liked it. There was whatever feedback they've had, I've incorporated into the model. So it's like a distillation of, financial planning within biotech, within Anaplan, all coming into this demo model. And I'm excited to show that to Anaplan and see whether there are any customers that we can, show that to and take them through it. So it's quite an exciting time at the moment where, okay, first time like I've built this thing which I can take to market. Whereas before, I was like kind of told what to do. Now I can actually use all my experience and then use that to build solutions over over an industry, which is quite a big thing actually, and quite a shift in viewpoint.
Yeah, and just the way I've seen it is, you've taken your years of experience and you've also brought in this network of people, right? And all of it, I think, is it all comes together, and this asset, it's kind of taking, before you were selling your expertise as a service, but now you've kind of packaged it all together, right, into this product that is now marketable, and I think this asset really in a way is a representation of basically like your upbringing through Anaplan and all of the experiences and people you've met along the way. And, I think, and I'll probably say on behalf of us both that, we couldn't have done this without some of the people that we've worked with, along the way.
Yeah, and that's like another thing. A lot of the work that I've done has been done in the past has been sort of just me and me building stuff. This is like a genuine collaboration of people, technical Anaplan model builders to actual business users. It's a collaboration of multiple people, and like if I wouldn't have been able to get anywhere close to where it is right now without their experience. So yeah, I'm quite grateful for that, and for all these conversations that I've had with them.
Yeah, certainly. So Karim, it's been great, having this discussion. We're very excited about what's upcoming, a lot to look forward to. Is there anything that you'd like to leave the audience with as we wrap up?
Yeah, I mean, personally, Anaplan in itself has been quite a good, like the right horse to back for me. If you're coming in, I think, you've made the right decision. I'm really sold by it right now. It's been good to me. It's been a pivotal sort of part of my career for the last 5 or 6 years, and I'm grateful to the platform, really.
Well, awesome. We are very excited for what's to come. I think AKO is right around the corner, and we're excited to showcase all of the great work, that we've done together. And we'll keep everyone posted on as things progress. And Karim would love to obviously have you back on, perhaps, down the road, and we'll perhaps share an update with where things are at.
Yeah, Danish, and actually, it's really great that you're having these podcasts, right? There's, as far as I know, there isn't anything like this done by anyone else. So this shows your commitment to it as well. I'm sure you are also quite kind of grateful to the platform and to the work that you found as a result of that. So great work that you're doing as well. This podcast is really a big deal,
Yeah, thank you. It's very kind words, and I feel like the respect, of course, is mutual, and and it's been great working with you so far.
Thank you, Danish.
All right, well, that wraps it up for this episode of the DS Show. We'll see you guys in the next episode.